Okay. Does it start now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
Oh,
should we start?
yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So since it's, I think, time 4:30, so I would like to formally start. Good evening to my fellow panelists here for today evening session. Very, very exciting evening. And also good evening to the attendees who have joined us through this virtual platform. My name is uh, my name is Punit Gupta. I am managing director in a Swiss company called Blaser Swisslube, India. Close to about 27 years of experience in the industry. Out of that, 16 years with Blaser Swisslube, responsible for India and Southeast Asia operations. Blaser is a very unique company, Swiss family-owned company focusing on high technology in coolants and cutting oils. And we love to work with our customers in manufacturing for improving their productivity and competitiveness. Health and happiness and health and environment, I think that's another forte with us globally. So that's in short about me. Warm welcome once again to everybody. Thanks a lot for joining in. Theme of today's panel, I think we know it's sunrise industries, growing opportunities, and also the challenges ahead towards meeting those opportunities and encashing them. As per me, I think we live in a very interesting world. I mean, except the challenges of COVID, which we are currently facing. It's a very exciting time which we have been living in. Why I say so is because the pace of change has become very fast in last 10 years when we see. I mean, change has been always associated with all of us historically, but the pace of change has become phenomenally fast. Courtesy, I think, the technology developments, disruptions, innovations which are happening, and that is really creating a lot of excitement in everybody's mind that we live in a very, very exciting time when it comes to manufacturing, when we look into the future from a long-term perspective, I mean, both short-term and long-term perspective. So I'm really extremely happy to have this panel discussion with two of my fellow panelists here on board. And this topic also becomes very apt today in this current backdrop. So I would like to quickly introduce our panelist, give a short introduction. I have Mr. Rama Iyer. He is Chief Innovation Officer at T-Hub, which leads India's pioneering innovation ecosystem, which is powering next generation products and new business models. He was part of the founding team at T-Hub, played a very crucial role in building its corporate innovation business. He's also a senior advisor to the state of Assam's innovation ecosystem. So I think that's something very, very interesting. Rama is a seasoned business leader in India's innovation ecosystem and seeks to establish the country as a trailblazer in innovation paradigm. In the past, he has also worked with brands such as Cisco, Polycom, Ericsson, Nortel, and TCS. He's also a startup evangelist, advisor, business and technology leader with more than 20 years of experience, including business incubators, open innovation, and accelerating programs. I think it's extremely, extremely nice to have Rama, to have you here on this panel. Thank you very much for joining in. We have the second panelist, Mr. Anupam Bhattacharjee, AVP Consulting and IT Sales in Tata Technologies. So Anupam is associated with United Nations also as a speaker on electric mobility. He's a tech evangelist and a passionate business professional. with 22 years of global experience in sales, strategy, consulting, innovation, product management, and partner development in diversified industries. So really carrying a very rich experience. He worked in Tata Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra, Wipro Technologies, and Tata Technologies. He managed relationships with largest automotive clients in India, Japan, North America, Germany, and France. And currently, it's so exciting to know that he's currently pursuing PhD on EV branding at IIM Ranchi. So very happy to have Anupam you on board here today evening. I would request both of you, maybe if you can give a short self-introduction, I think, because I mean, I got some points, but it is very nice to hear in your own words, quickly to know you better. So starting with you, Anupam.
Punit, first let me thank you for giving such a beautiful introduction. In fact, it was so overwhelming. Thank you so much. I really am trying to understand what else I should say. But to be frank with you, I am passionate about electric vehicles, and I have been advocating about electric vehicles for last almost 10 years. I had been talking about the advent of electric vehicles, its growth, and also the second part, which is about conversion of traditional internal combustion engines into electric vehicles for quite many years. So that has not happened, but I'm sure in future that will happen. But while the discussion progresses, I will open up with many more facts and figures which will be useful for the audience that who are going to hear from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anupam. Over to you, Rama.
Thanks, Punit. I mean, pretty elaborate and a high-flying introduction. I am like, ठीक है, मतलब done few things, but obviously not as close to what Anupam has done. So I think I kind of I represent more of the startup side. We are a startup innovation hub, and days are mostly interacting with a lot of interesting startups. And as Anupam was saying, I think there's a lot of EV interest and a lot of good ideas. We just hope that India quickly kind of becomes like big on EV for obviously all the advantages that we know. And I personally am looking forward to learn a lot from Anupam with his background in automobiles and e-mobility. And hopefully I can kind of add things outside of EV of some of the sunrise sectors and segments that we are seeing, and how India can play a part and role in terms of taking advantage and growing from there on. So thanks, Punit, and thanks for this. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Rama. And I think the beauty is I get an opportunity today to learn from both of you. So eventually I would gain the maximum. Being a bit selfish here. So I also would request, before we dive into the discussion, make a comment towards the audience who are connected. If you have any questions, clarifications, feel free during the ongoing discussion to use the chat. I think that function is enabled, and you can post your questions, queries, and then I'd be happy to pick them up together with the experts who are available with me here. Today, when I look at, I think one big belief which I carry personally myself is we live in a collaborative world. And we call terminologies like ecosystems, etc. And I believe it's very much required to really manage collaboration. Because if we want to succeed, you can't succeed in today's world on your own by working independently. So you need definitely a collaboration. And for collaboration, I believe we need to have partners, the right partners who bring the right wisdom, right resources, right experience, right technologies. And I'm happy that even our panel is today set like a collaborative panel. So whereas we have Rama, who comes helping startups, so many fields, seeing, I'm sure, daily so many exciting things and ideas, listening every day, including business plans, and then Anupam focusing on the transition of automotive industry from traditional IC engine towards EV. So it's also an example of having a good collaborative platform here. As the theme, which we said is sunrise industries, potential opportunities, and then challenges to deal with. So I would like to slice this whole discussion for easy management into broadly two parts. First part, I would like to hear and maybe discuss a bit, elaborate a bit with the two of you, Rama and Anupam, that how do we define what are the sunrise industries and what does it mean to us in India here? Because the term looks very exciting. I mean, when you say sunrise, it gives you goosebump immediately, either as an investor or as an employee. But what does it really mean? How do you define sunrise industries and what are the potentials associated with it? Maybe starting with Rama.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to start. Sunrise industry, I mean, it's easy to understand because I think for the audience, I mean, obviously the term itself gives away, which is sunrise. And then there is a corollary term, which is sunset. So then there are sunset industries, which obviously, it is like end of the day for those segment of technologies, industry, verticals, or any of those, which means it is close to its like, closure of the day or death, whichever way you want to look at it. And obviously it's time to move on in the evolution curve. And I think that's kind of almost analogous for the things that get sunsetted. There are newer set of opportunities that emerges, and that becomes like sunrise opportunities or sunrise industries. In some cases, the industries largely may remain. Like for example, automotive is an interesting intersection point, as an industry that is there continues, but the opportunity segment or the technology thing changes, which Anupam will obviously expand on. And then there are some things which are brand new. Like I don't know. Like for example, autonomous vehicle is a different class and category, even though it is under the broader automotive mobility segment, if you will. But autonomous has taken a very different hue, right? Autonomous is not only restricted to passenger commercial, but it is into defense. It is into so many other angles. So autonomous as a technology cluster is an emerging sunrise industry for me. Obviously, EV is the other one that people like Anupam and other leaders are spearheading in the country. So some of those things are very easy. And for me, coming from the software side of the industry, I think software is continues to be there. It evolves. So software industry, I mean, from an India standpoint, you can kind of argue both ways. You could say that we have kind of went past that creamy layer of we grew, and now the margins are kind of flat. So there is not much to differentiate between a classical software versus a classical hardware manufacturing kind of a play. But even in software, I think as you move up the value chain, or if you're on the cutting edge of technology, like say robotics, AI, ML, and some of the other things, you still continue to have a much higher mind share of customers. You have much higher margins, profitability, and that becomes like a part sunrise subsegment in the broader sunrise industry. So I think one, to me, there is this larger industry seismic shifts, and then there is this whole thing of like the industry going through transition. I think the other thing that really kind of stands out is space tech. Space tech has an industry has now opened up and is providing a lot of opportunities where startups are now not only kind of trying to launch micro satellites, but there is a startup that is trying to launch a whole damn rocket. I mean, they are trying to kind of trying to be the SpaceX of India. So I kind of know them in close quarters, and that I mean, doing is one thing. Even thinking is such a large, gigantic effort. And the Department of Defense, MOD, and ISRO has now opened up that space and starting to kind of ally with startups and other emerging things. So that is one thing that has kind of stood out, obviously among other things. And I'm sure there'll be more things that come out, but I'll let Anupam kind of come in and then add more.
Okay, I mean, thanks a lot, Rama. I think this is very, very exciting. What you have just mentioned, that even in India, we are now going to hear soon about startups which are talking about getting into space with a satellite. So it's not only the micro satellite for, I think, Wi-Fi, internet connectivity, it's much beyond that. So that looks very exciting. Anupam, the same question towards you now. How do you see when we say sunshine industry and potential opportunities, etc.?
Thanks, Punit. Rama, thank you. I think you gave a fantastic introduction and regarding the sunrise industry. The point I will touch upon, because I liked your, Rama, the way you touched upon multiple facets of the business, multiple areas, and you gave beautiful examples. So what I will do is I will narrow it down a little bit and I will try to explain how do you really test whether it is a sunrise industry or it is a normal industry with a normal car. Okay, so I will take the example of electric vehicle little later, but I will take a cue from your own statement, Rama, where you said about autonomous vehicle. I will touch upon that. That's the next level you are talking about. So if you see the phases of automotive evolution, first was connected vehicle. Vehicles got connected. Then came electric vehicles, which are also connected. I mean, there is no electric vehicle which is not connected. And the third thing is autonomous vehicle. And when you talk about autonomous vehicle, they are vehicles which can run on their own. There are leaders, radars, which can see much beyond the eye. A simple eye can see 50 meters, but they see 300 meters where they can understand any change that happens. And the AI ML behind is so powerful that it can think much faster and take the necessary action so that the car is safe. So I'm not going much into that, but I will explain how to test whether it is a sunrise industry. And let me take the example of electric vehicle. Now, the first thing, I think I will request anybody to say which is the highest valued auto company today. So maybe Punit or Rama, if you can, any guess, any wild guess is fine.
In India, it used to be Maruti Suzuki, but then what we see is Tesla probably.
Yes, you are. Yeah, Rama, if you are willing to say something.
Yeah, I was saying Uber.
No, Uber is a service provider. They are not a pure auto OEM. I'm talking about an auto OEM. And I'm so thankful to Punit. You are absolutely right. GM, Toyota, Volkswagen, everybody being there, a small company which sells about not even 500,000 cars in a year, which is Tesla, is the world's most valuable auto OEM. The valuation is 200 billion plus USD. And the next is Toyota, which is little less than 200 at this point of time. And they did it in the last year. And they sell, I think, 30 times less volume than Toyota. Now, question is why? Of course, there are multiple ways of looking at it. Say, for example, if you get into the kind of greenhouse effects or the pollutions, the CO2 levels, the global warming, all those facts and figures, if you see, you will say that electric vehicles are the future. Those are all fine. Even 20 years back, people used to talk about all that. But what is happening is now the big change is happening. So now you can really identify that this is the sunrise sector. So it is not the factors which are only about the changes, the forces that enable some new technology to come. It is about the market recognizing it. So everything together, when it comes, then it becomes a sunrise sector, and then that is the good entry point for a person. And I believe there are many people out here who are from auto industry, and they are also auto ancillaries tier 1 suppliers. So for them, in my personal opinion, this is the right time to kick in and get into this sunrise sector so that they can make money and get into this business. Yeah, Punit, over to you.
I mean, thanks a lot, Anupam, for bringing this interesting dimension that why do we say and how do we say whether an industry is a sunrise industry. And now I'm actually so glad that Rama is here with us. And I would like to pick up this thread from you, what you talked about valuation. Because this, as a normal person, I keep hearing a lot about valuation with startups, right? So Rama, can you throw some light on this topic of valuation with startups and then linking it to the sunrise industries? I mean, how do you see it?
Sure. So I think, valuation is like a two-edged sword, right? I mean, one, I think there are some people who are trying to build business, but I think that is kind of probably now not a priority in itself, for whatever set of reasons. I think people are like rather going milestone by milestone. Key, I have to raise like this round, that round, and that puts me in that club and this valuation, right? So I think the problem also is like the market is also looking for that. Investors are looking for that. The news is looking for that, and that seems to be like this artificial way of saying that what, I have now found my ground, or I am now successful compared to others who have not reached. Very very unfortunate development, because people are not looking at real customers, real revenue, real profitability. That has kind of taken a massive backseat. And you could say that, obviously part of the fault lies with us, but you look at Amazon, right? I mean, Amazon was like not profitable for maybe till last year. um, and I mean, again, he's a maverick, right? I mean, there are like, one is Bezos, and obviously our Elon Musk. And I think it takes a maverick to build like $1 trillion company. So I think Amazon has always been on record saying that, forget, I'm not going to make profit, or I'm not going to come under this quarter and quarter pressure. And I'm going to build a business that nobody can touch. I'm going to run on wafer thin margin and build businesses after businesses. So that's a odd man scenario. And people now take that examples and say, what, if something like that has been successful, then why don't I just go capture market? I mean, raise money, deploy, raise money, and take market first, at least notionally, and then kind of figure out how do I now make profit. And that's one reason that many of the startups like go kaput, right? Even the top of the brands, they raised like hundreds of millions of dollars, but then they're not going anywhere. And VCs also take those bets. You know what? I'm going to kind of spray and pray, put like tens and millions of dollars in 10, 12, and hopefully like one Flipkart or Baiju comes out of it, and I'm okay. I'm done. And that happens, and they are okay with it. What happens to the rest of the people, right? So the rest of the people are like found wanting, going down the same race and not coming out winners, and then all of them are losers because they didn't think about customers, revenue, and profitability. And it's very hard once you go down that thing to kind of come back and say, what, now let me start looking at real business, right? That's set a very bad precedence and an example for many to follow. But unfortunately, that seems to be like the success metrics of how most people try to evaluate. I mean, having said that, I'm not trying to paint the whole city red. Obviously, there are much more like traditional entrepreneurs who kind of build businesses even now, who are like doesn't matter. I mean, I'm going to kind of make 10 rupees, but I'm going to ensure there are like five customers who have paid me, and I save 2 rupees at the end of the day. So I think there are businesses like that. Obviously, they never come in the front line. We never hear of that. We never talk of that because they want to talk about this, right? But there are those who are like if not an exponential hockey stick curve, they are going steadily and they are building businesses, generating employability, but unfortunately in the minority right now. So I think it's not a very good sign. But I think the like the pigeon is out of the bag. It's hard to kind of put it back and create that kind of discipline. Hopefully, our B schools and all the other guys like start teaching business fundamentals for the vulnerable entrepreneurs, right?
But Rama, I mean, that tempts me to actually ask another question back to you. See, like I grew up with with the fundamentals of the traditional businesses, right? So where we said the business has to make money, and if a business is not making money, then it's not really sustainable over a period of time. Now, today with this valuation through theory, I mean, what you also said that people are least bit bothered whether you make money or no. I mean, focus is somehow to just do some valuation, build up on valuation, and then you come into this immediately limelight. So when you link it now back to so-called sunshine sectors, sunshine areas to look at segments, So I think somewhere do we also relate sustainability, that where we see sustainable development, or we sometimes get lost into these sparkles, which we see around us?
Right. I mean, good and tough question, because I think the sunrise sector, by definition, right, is taking a bet on newer technologies, investing in that. Otherwise, we are not going to make progress.
Yeah.
Progress as humans, progress as world and everything else, right? So I think there is that iota of not an iota. It's a large amount of risk, and there are those investors who are ready to take that risk, which is like high risk, high return kind of a game. And
Mhm.
unless for entrepreneurs who are mavericks, unless for investors who are ready to take that gamble, some of the sunrise industry itself will be in question, because a very very cautious entrepreneur would only kind of put money that I have my raw material, I will build, it has to sell, and I make this delta. So he will continue to be in that cycle and make iterative adjustments,
Yeah.
iterative business models, and not really forget about scale, I want to do 100x of the same in 100 cities. Not
Yeah.
even that. He's not going to look at a new technology capex investment because he's not built enough and all of that, right? So I think
Mhm.
we need a good mix of both. I think we need those people who are mavericks of kind to help create the sunrise industry and say, what, this is possible. I mean, for this the whole SpaceX ka thing, and the tunnel that Elon Musk is going to build, and high speed rails. I mean, it's like nobody would kind of even listen to him. So there are only few people who think, few people who invest, and that becomes an industry now for high speed tunnel mobility, right? And
Mhm.
similar for rocket launches. I mean, there was
Mhm.
never an example before, state backed entities to launch rockets and look at space tech. So I think we need some of that, or a good chunk of that, to push and create sunrise industries. Otherwise, it's kind of will take a long time for its regular evolution, and we will it'll be like 100-year cycle or sort. That's my take.
I mean, I fully agree with you, Rama, that there have to be somehow a risk appetite. People have to experiment with ideas. And I think today we see many realities which actually come from ideas. And as long as we keep trying, then I'm sure innovation also happens. So I come back to Anupam. Anupam, you made a statement that EVs are being talked about already for many, many years. Now, just before COVID in India, also we saw that Indian government was making a lot of statements, giving some guidelines that by certain year, certain percentage has to shift towards EV. Now, what is your take, Anupam, that how do you see it moving ahead, so that we get an idea about how sustainable we are talking on this EV development, a transition from IC to EV?
Absolutely. I think, Punit, I will take this question. I'll take the cue from Rama's statement. If you talk about profitability of today, you get into the business and start making right from day one. It doesn't happen always, and especially for the sunrise industry, it rarely happens. Now I will give this EV perspective to tell you how things are changing and how things are happening. Just before that, I will give you some numbers, which is about the global EV market. Globally, in year 2019, about 77.5 million vehicles were there, and total EV sale was about 2.2 million. And global EV share is about roughly about 2.85%. And in China, it is about roughly about 5%, which is highest in the world. Whereas if you come to India, we had sold about 2.76 million cars in India, but EVs were only 3,400. And that means we are at only 0.12% of EV penetration. It is just negligible. So this place, with all the background that I had given, it is quite clear that EV is future. Everybody knows. And today EV penetration is hardly anything. So today, if somebody is investing in this market, he has to keep his mind on future. Now I'll tell you what are the changes that are happening and why. I think a lot of people are there who are listening to us are from auto ancillary industry also. So I'll give one more fact. Say, for example, in a traditional car, there are roughly about 22,000 parts that are assembled to make one car. You'll be surprised, to know the number of parts that are assembled to create a EV. It is hardly 300 to 400. Now, just see the change that is going to happen, and in that also, almost 70% is the price of the battery and the software that is there inside the vehicle. So today is so much of tier one suppliers, you know, they have to really think differently. Are they going to be software company? Are they going to be platform company? Are they going to change themselves to supply something to the automotive OEMs so that they are relevant tomorrow? So that is how things are changing. They also need to think that yes, I have to invest in something which gives me valuation tomorrow, which gives me the fuel to run my business tomorrow, which gives me enough avenues to earn revenue and profitability for tomorrow. So this is what I want to talk about right now. While the discussion progresses, I will give you more information about how things are happening and how people get into this onboarded, and what kind of industries and companies are getting into this business, and how the current auto suppliers or tier ones need to change to adapt to the new situation that is coming in the auto industry.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Anupam. Thanks, Anupam, for bringing a very relevant point and throwing some numbers. Now, I'm actually tempted to ask one question to both of you, which on one side looks very exciting, on the other side looks scary actually to me. Now, we are all, in a general parlance, very happy and excited to talk about sunshine industry. We feel positive because either as an investor or as an employee, we see many opportunities are probably coming up front, which could make my life better, right? That's the kind of a positive notion which runs into our mind. Now, two questions I have which lead to the basic question that what are the opportunities? But if I listen to you, Anupam, you said 30,000 parts become to some few hundred parts, right? So a layman will think immediately, hey, I will lose my job. It will reduce the employment. The economy will go down. Maybe I'm sure Tesla makes money and the shareholders make money, but probably it's not good for the economy in general. Then another thought which comes when even Rama, you were mentioning about some of the segments like robotics or space exploration, satellites. Then we say, okay, we have a lot of manpower available here. We already have people who are unemployed who are looking for jobs. But then are these so-called sunshine sectors more relevant for the developed economies, or developing economies like India also has something to gain? So these two questions I would like to actually combine and ask you back that what are really the opportunities when we say sunshine industries in front of us, like country like India? So Rama, how do you see this?
I mean, yeah, this is a pretty not a tough but a very interesting debate all the time, right? In terms of technology, automation, and job loss on the other side. So I think the example that I give is like think about this has been happening forever, right? Think about like when earth movers were not there, you deploy 100 people to dig up the mud and do something. Earth mover comes, obviously they lose that part of the job, but they go and do something else. I think so. People have to kind of evolve into a different role, job, and see what next they can do. And I think whether by like, by push, or by motivation, or whether it is self or through need, I think it happens. People kind of move on and do things. I think, but obviously, I think what sticks is like, oh, because of this machine came, people lost jobs, or I lost my current thing because I am lazy enough not to do anything else. I am just kind of, I do that one thing and I want to do that one thing for 50 years. So if somebody told me that I go do learn something or do something else, then, that is like, for some people it is friction. For some people it is like, tough realignment, reskilling, whatever you want to call. And I think it is just kind of, to me, it's like, sheer, like, being lazy. I think you just have to kind of move up and do that other thing. So my thing is like, always there is different levels of like mechanization, different levels of instrumentation, different levels of automation, now robotics, various other technology. That only means that those are things now machines can do better, cheaper. We have to go do something else, which is of much more higher value and sense for us. And obviously, there is going to be the displacement of things, which is not only like true for people like people who are doing like manufacturing or people who are doing like so a little bit menial work. It is also true for everybody, including people like us. I mean, unless we kind of innovate on a daily basis and do something meaningful, what we were doing 10 years back is no longer like that effective. There are junior guys who can do that. So I think it applies to everyone. It is just that some people kind of make a larger deal out of it because it is in their face, and that is what I have been always doing, and that's what I will continue to do. So it's like part denial, part just being sheer lazy about it. So I don't think we should worry, but that keeps coming every time. But that's my thought. I'll let Anupam kind of.
So do you mean to say, Rama, that even if when we move fast towards these so-called sunshine sectors with new technologies, this will open up more opportunities for people?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll give you another example. I mean, if suppose I am the guy who is a construction worker, and I kind of go there and stand like say in Vasai or Virar, and I had that limited set of opportunity. Think about if like Elon Musk speed tunnel kind of comes, and I'm able to go to like Pune in 5 minutes, right,
Yeah,
and kind of create opportunity there. I can go to like Bangalore in 10 minutes. So that now opens up the whole space and region for me to do the same work across a pan India region now. So I think
absolutely.
it is like technology, affordability, and the value that I can provide my services, which never existed before. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it is hard. It's hard to kind of for people to get. It is the same thing. If suppose like if local train was not there,
yeah.
how will people come from like like
Our
Virar,
places.
from like from far off distance, from Karjat Kasara, for people who have a Bombay context and come to VTCST to work, right? It was not even possible. You
True,
can't
true.
like if you take a bus in the morning, you'll not reach by evening.
Yeah, yeah.
So see the advantages, see the value that it has brought, and it doesn't cost too much for you.
Yeah.
So
So,
hopefully that resonates.
okay, good. Anupam, this part two of the same question to you, like EVs when we are talking. So one is from people perspective, but second is also the economy perspective. So we are still, we say, in a developing economy perspective. Are these EVs equally valid for developing economies versus developed economy? Because the number what you gave for India was on one side says there's a huge headroom to grow, but second side also makes us think that why it is not growing.
Hey, Punit, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
In between, I had a technical glitch.
You want me to repeat?
So, yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So Anupam, I said the same question, but part two of the question to you. When you said EV, you said about 2.5% or 2.8% is the global average. China is 5%, and India we are in some decimal digit somewhere, right? So is it because we are still a developing economy versus we are talking developed economies when we compare markets like America and Europe and Japan, etc.? Is that the reason, or you see there are other things which are holding us, and you still see that headroom is there, and we will catch up very fast?
Punit, very intelligent question. But what should I say? What I should mention out here is it's not about the economy. In fact, some of the digitization and other things happened in our country much faster than even Western countries.
Yeah.
So we may come little late, but we catch up very fast. I think that's the first point I would like to mention out here.
Mhm.
And the second point, which Rama said, I really liked. For me also, it is if one door closes, the other door opens. Okay. If I had talked about that electric vehicles, if they come in 22,000 parts, become say 500 parts, obviously the ancillary suppliers will think no, 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 I will lose my job. But in the same context, they can change themselves into creating the EV infrastructure. say charging infrastructure. They can even work on battery replacement. Automatic, it takes 2 minutes to replace one battery and put a new battery out there. So somebody doesn't need to charge. He will go to a battery replacement center, 2 minutes, like the time it takes for, refueling your car, full tank. Less than that time, your battery can be changed. Then battery leasing. So overall economy, there'll be no negative effect. So whenever some new technology comes, we always think that no, it is going to take so many people's job. It is going to have so much of negative effect on the overall economy. But in my personal opinion, it actually helps mankind. It actually helps the people. It helps the people who can afford or use these things, and also those people who are supplying to make this these products or services that I'm talking about. So overall, my view is it is not going to be bad for whether it is Western world or this part of the world. It is going to be good for everybody. New doors will open up. The only thing we need to change, adapt ourselves to get into the new door. If we think that whatever we are doing today is something that I will continue to do, your days are numbered.
Absolutely.
So let's accept and understand this hard fact.
Yeah.
I will just touch upon one very very nice example. What is happening, these electric vehicles are coming, and the suppliers are so very different and mostly are not from auto industry. And to your surprise, to everybody's surprise, they are from mobile industry. Okay. Now, the biggest supplier, say, for example, is Panasonic. Of course, they make the batteries, so they are the biggest supplier. 30-40% of the vehicle cost is the battery cost. So Panasonic is the one of the biggest supplier. But there is a company called NIDAC. They are small motor manufacturer, and those motors are used inside Apple phones for the vibration. Now they are coming and creating motors for electric vehicles. They have invested billions for creating electric vehicle motors. Now people will ask why? Because they are producing motors which are of the highest efficiency.
Yeah.
That kind of efficiency the traditional motor companies cannot bring, or are maybe are not as good as them. So since they have mastered how to make super efficient motors, so their technology and their know-how can be used in electric vehicle industry. And just imagine if a motor efficiency goes up by 10%, your range goes up by 10% as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
how big implication it has got to the industry. So as Rama was mentioning, you are also mentioning, Punit, in this industry, in the new era of technology, people have to be really, really innovative
Yeah.
to bring something which improves the life of the consumer or the user. So that's the innovation part I brought. So door closes, door opens, but you need to be really innovative to get into the new area and open the new door for yourself.
Very nicely said, Anupam. And coincidence that NIDEC is well known to me also. I, in fact, visited two of their plants in Thailand, because we are their major partner in their HDD drive manufacturing. So they make this for computers, for storage media, they make those hard disk drive. And they need some special technology coolants, which we have been developing together with Seagate. So that's why, I was there twice in their plant. So the company is very, very interesting company, super interesting company.
Absolutely. So you know about NIDAC. They are
absolutely. Yes. So now two questions I have. Before I go to one interesting one, like what is innovation? Because I think Rama was talking, he deals with innovation every day. That's his job. And Anupam, you also mentioned, you closed the remark by saying that we need to be innovative. So I would be tempted to ask Rama, what does he mean by innovation? And before Rama, you pick up that part, I would like to actually ask one more question in between. How do you see the role of government towards the sunshine industries? Because I think Rama, you in your profile, I read that you are working with Assam government also with some innovation related hub which is being created there. And Anupam, you have been attending UN and so many other places. So, what's the role of governments you see in India?
Yeah. So I can go first and then
Yeah.
you can chat. I think government obviously plays a critical role in terms of setting the vision and direction, right? For
Mhm.
example, unless somebody like Niti Aayog comes and says, what, by 2030 we shall be this much percentage EV across the country. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are heartburned because people who are tier one OEM manufacturers, they have invested in their combustion engine line, R&D, billions of dollars of investment. So it doesn't go well, and they want to drag this as long as possible from their vested interest, which is fair enough from a business standpoint. So I think the government has to kind of sometimes just make a call in the larger interest of the country in terms of a sunrise industry moving forward, and obviously all the efficiencies of cost, environmental benefits, and just taking India forward, right? I mean, it is the same like the demonetization move. For a country like India, it's very hard. You can't kind of go like unit by unit trying to kind of change. So I think a government forced a vision statement or a policy recommendation or a change, and even though they have given decent enough time for an industry like that, it kind of takes time. I think they're trying to find a middle ground that gives some time so that people can kind of clear their inventory, make their plans, transition over, and then work with them to make it happen. So I think government is very critical in terms of finding that balance of how hard to push, how to incentivize, and ensure that it is incentivized in the right things, right? Like for example, it's a nice thing that for EV vehicles there is whole bunch of other incentives to ensure that people are motivated to go down that path as consumers, as manufacturers, and that in a way kind of disincentivize the older manufacturing line, right? So I think you have to be a little like creative, you have to be innovative even as government to ensure that people are moving quicker to the newer age, newer industry, newer innovation, and obviously also help, right? I think the first part they do decently well. The second part in terms of help, I think they kind of little bit kind of let loose there, where then they get kind of dragged into what, now I've done my EV thing, now I'm going to go announce, make a AI ka announcement and a policy change because my job is done. So I think that that little bit of this thinking through and kind of hand holding and figuring out ki, are you hurt, not hurt, what can I do more to ease your pain needs to happen a little bit more aggressively in my mind. That I'm kind of not an expert, but I think that is where I hear that government could help more, and they also understand ki where they are headed as an industry, right? But they somehow think ki they are left in the cold because they have their plans chopped out for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and now all of a sudden you have kind of changed the goalpost for them. So they kind of look at it that way as a business. So I think government's role is important, critical, and they need to kind of stay the ground, continue to support. Otherwise, people are going to then kind of be tactical about it, whether it is investment in India, a whole bunch of policy decisions that kind of get changed and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading this report today, which I got, not today, maybe a couple of days back, about Atmanirbhar 3.0, which was talking, the government has made some provision to support 265,000 crore of rupees, and focus area is incentivizing new employment, and then this PLI, production linked incentive for some 10 champion sectors. And in those sectors, I mean, I was also happy to read whatever both of you said. I mean, it's very well mentioned, whether it's a battery related thing or electronics, mobile, and also the auto and auto components. So I'm sure, I mean, that's where probably it is hitting at. So Anupam, how do you see when we talk about EV in India now, if we focus only in the Indian market, what's your take that what kind of horizon you give for some significant numbers and what is going on from the government side there or from the industry side?
I think before I talk about what is happening in India, I'll give little perspective on what is happening across the globe.
Yeah,
That will
sure.
help us understand, how things happen.
Sure.
Earlier, I had mentioned about the share of EV to be maximum in China. No, because the government actually pushed EV. They had given huge incentive to the EV buyers, you know. And this same thing had happened in North America as well, where a Tesla, which used to cost about $40,000, they used to get a refund of $7,000 from California government. So these kind of incentives were given so that the critical mass is reached. Once the particular segment or the product reaches a critical mass, it needs to be incubated. But after that, it goes into autopilot mode. In India also, it is not very different. There are two things that happen. One is government takes a strategy. As Rama was mentioning that by 2030, government once mentioned that we want to make everything electric. Now, because of the different lobbies and different set of people, their problems, the government changed the stand and said by 2030 we will make 30% of the cars electric. Okay. Now this is the first step. Government, as for the country, needs to take one stand, take one action, and create or pave a path towards that goal. I think our government has done that part quite well, although there was a change between 2017 and 2019, but there is a clear path, at least we have right now. Second thing is about incentive, which actually propels the growth of that particular segment or the sector or the sunrise sector that we are talking about. In India also, government has incentives. Now there can be debate whether that much of incentive is good enough. It can be more, it can be less. But I'm saying our government is not turning blind, eye to this fact. They have given incentive, and I'm not going into the debate whether it is more or less. But yes, it is there. And Delhi and Bangalore has the best incentive in the country as of now. And that is why you will see that most of the electric vehicles are concentrated in these two cities. Although the things are changing, because India, we are getting better electric vehicles with range of 300 kilometers. Earlier, it was not like that. It was about 80 to 100 kilometers. In that also, if it is too hot and you are keeping the AC on, it becomes 50, 60 kilometers. So this is how it is. I am quite hopeful that the steps that has been taken by the government will be useful to all, and there will be a smooth transition from combustion ignition internal combustion engines to electric vehicles over a period of time, so that everybody can change themselves, and open a new door for themselves.
Anupam, just one question, maybe. I don't know whether it's okay for you to answer or not. But would you like to give some kind of a timeline, let's say next 5 to 10 years, you see a major shift happening, or it will take maybe 10 to 15 years?
Government has right now given 2030 as the deadline year for 30% conversion. Okay, so I think I mean, at this point of time it is good enough, but only thing is how much. Okay. Earlier government talked about 100% conversion by 2030, but now they're talking about 30%. But in my opinion, this is a good baby step, which not only will help change over to the new technologies, as well as it will help the auto ancillaries as well to change themselves and come up with their set of offerings for this sunrise industry.
Super. Thank you very much, Anupam, for bringing some clarity in your perspective. Now, before I move to the third section of the discussion, which is the last section where we say what are the challenges, what needs to be done in order to succeed, I'm tempted to ask this question back to Rama. What's innovation, Rama, as per you? You deal with innovation every day, right, man?
Yeah. So I'll try to add that to the context of our discussion.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes very broad. So I think,
yes,
innovation and then opportunity, right? Like, for example, EV is a great example where, it has democratized the whole space again. Now it is I'll tell you an example. I was just meeting a startup. I mean, I don't know whether to call it a startup, but it's more like a startup only. They are trying to build a electric tractor, a first of its kind in its category, which is production ready, deployed. And he used to be like a small design manufacturing house. Now he's somebody now, with this electric play, he can become a manufacturer of some kind and capacity, which was mostly like, the fiefdom of Tatas, Mahindras, Escorts, etc., which is larger players, right? So I think for all this auto ancillary and smaller players, I think it has opened up the space for you to kind of think large. That what is it that I can do, and you don't need to stop at it. And if you have like, a good um, innovative product, I mean, there are chances that you can be like, bought over. Like for example, Hero kind of bought over like, Ather Energy, which is like the two-wheeler electric thing. And people don't want to waste time build it themselves. If there is a good thing available, they would rather kind of buy and take that space. So I think it has opened up that space in many ways. And I think the startup need to be innovative and think, "Ki, what is it that I should build which is of value, and I can position it right, and not be like, just a copycat model, right? Like one of the things that I was hearing last couple of years is like battery management. I mean, everybody's like, buying batteries from Thailand, China, and then trying to put it together brick by brick and say, I am doing it like this. There is a dashboard, you can 30% charge, 50% remaining. And it is like same. So it's like, you don't need to, you shouldn't be doing that, right? I mean, staying true to the cause of innovation. See, what else can you do? Like, try to provide an inventory where, you bring those batteries, create a landing spot and say, you know what, you can buy units from me, or do something which is either at the northbound or southbound of the supply chain. So I think it kind of, most people don't think, they kind of take the easy copycat route, which is probably okay if the market is large enough and you say, you know what, there is players for more. But I think it has thrown open the space, this whole electric thing, right? In each of the categories. So I think for suppliers, they need to understand that all this, many of the big companies, you take China, Korea, Japan, many of the lower suppliers have become like tier one vendors. I mean, everybody from Panasonic to Samsung was, a supplier of something at some point to large US manufacturing. And now they have taken over the whole thing and they are frontline manufacturers of the end product. So I think we somehow either do not have that, um, like, the gumption to think out that big and loud, or it is a limitation of capital. I don't know, whichever it is. I think in, the so-called India missing the bus of manufacturing, kind of, this is also a large factor to it. I think you can't keep saying that, government, bash up government, which is fine. I mean, they can do more and etc. But as innovators, as, manufacturing entrepreneurs, what is it that you have done, right? So I think we need to kind of show the mirror to ourselves before we show it to government.
I think very nicely said, Rama. So there has to be, I think, an approach of thinking big, thinking large, as you said, and then novelty in idea. Copycat does not work, and I fully kind of endorse what you said here. Now, I would like to quickly move to the third section and the last section of this particular topic. What needs to be done? Now, we know we have talked about right from startup to what's happening in automotive side and electric, autonomous, or robotics. And there are so many things which are exciting, which are happening, right? Then we talked about opportunities. We talked about that, okay, people need not think negative because this will open up so many opportunities for people and investors. The question is, what would be your advice to two people? One is as an investor, what would be your advice? And then to the people who are looking for employment, what would be your advice so that they remain successful with this new sunshine industry? Anupam, maybe I start with you.
Good question. So I think from employee perspective, it's very important that we first understand what are the shifts that are happening in the technology space. Unless otherwise I see future, I really can't plan my career. Okay, say for example, if a guy is a supervisor in the engine shop, tomorrow there's going to be no engine shop. However, there'll be many robots that will be working inside plants which will be actually creating the entire vehicle. I'll give an example of Tesla. In the Tesla entire plant, hardly any worker is there, and A to Z of the work is done by robots. Now Elon Musk says that I don't want people to really hand assemble vehicle and do spot weldings and all that stuff. He says I want people to run the robots, maintain the robots, and that's the kind of things that are happening, or even program the robots. Because if if just imagine if Tesla is creating 4,000 vehicles a week in their plant, they can scale it up to 6,000 just by little programming. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that changes. So unless otherwise employee really knows that what is really that thing of future which I need to know today or train myself today, how can I be relevant for tomorrow? As it is for businessman, I need to know the next door and I have to enter that door. So for the employees also, it is very important they know what is that next door and how do I enter the next door. And when you know what is the next door and what is your interest area, I need to equip myself with that kind of knowledge skill. And today, because of any knowledge and skill is not confined anywhere. Anybody can learn anything from anywhere. Only thing is you have to devote time. I think that's very important from employees' perspective. Understand what is happening in the world and understand what is future, and creating enough experience and knowledge to be ready for employment, ready for tomorrow. But from an investor's perspective, a very personal view I can talk about in the automotive space, in the electric vehicle space. I think the biggest problem, I think Rama also touched upon the problem of battery management. I will not talk about battery management. I will talk about battery. There is huge transformation happening in the entire battery technology. You will not believe last 150 years not much of change has happened in the battery technology. It is cathode anode and you have some electrolyte in between. It will go here there, ions will move, and that is why electricity will get stored and so on and so forth. The only change that has happened is in terms of the metal or the cathode anode material that has been used and which has made the battery more efficient. Lithium ion batteries are much better. Within lithium ion also there are cobalt batteries and phosphate batteries. They are different. Phosphate batteries are cheaper, cobalt batteries are costlier, but in terms of performance they are better. Cobalt batteries are done by illegal mining, by child labor. So Elon Musk says that anybody can supply battery to me, whatever number of batteries you can supply which is legally made, I'm ready to take. So what is happening is this kind of changes that are happening in the battery industry is mind-boggling. But the disruption to that next orbit, say for example, earlier one music used to be hundreds of MBs. Then MP3 came, hundreds of MBs. You can put 400 music. So this kind of disruption in battery industry has not happened much. And in my personal view, that is the big change that is going to happen. Even on the battery day, Elon Musk had presented, he had not talked about nanotechnology, but he had put a photo in the background of his presentation, which was hinting that battery is going to come. Nanotechnology will be used for next generation batteries, and so that is the area which I personally believe is the area of future. Yeah, Punit, if I
Thank you very much. I think I already sense a lot of excitement when you are talking about it. That's really your area. So I'll be also glad to maybe catch up with you later on as well. Same question going back to Rama. What would be your advice to people and to investors?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm like caught up in Anupam's excited and energy thing with cathode anode, ion transferring, like high charge capacitors and all of that. Because, and I think we have a lot of material scientists, we have a lot of intelligent people. I think it is like not paying attention, right? And almost like thinking like, "Arey, matlab, what can we do in this space? This is for US, Europe, Germany, Japan, whatever, right?" So I don't think we kind of even give it a shot. And then there is so much government policies to kind of create battery parks, look at EV ecosystem. People are not putting up their hands and saying, you know what, count me in, right? So I think unfortunately it's not happening. I think we need a lot more Anupams in the country to kind of create those sparkles and excitement and get this EV thing going, because this is going to be huge. and shouldn't be like a missed opportunity for us. I think we have a good chance to create a lot more large brands which can supply globally, right? It doesn't need to be that all the Teslas and Apples, have to come from US. I think we should probably do something about it. I kind of forgot the question that you asked in all this
No,
commentary.
no, I, I just asked a question that what would be your advice if people have to succeed for the sunshine industry
Okay.
segments?
Okay.
So as an investor or
There's
as people, as an employee.
Got it. So, I mean, as employee, I think you need to kind of reskill yourself. You need to be on the go, and you can't do it tomorrow. You have to do it today. I mean, go home, read, like, upgrade yourself, update yourself. There is no tomorrow if you want to be safe and you want to be counted, right? So, for employees and new age knowledge workers, that's what it is. In terms of investors, I think even though I mean most of the investors like boast themselves as like we invest in disrupting technology, we invest in emerging technologies. The startup that I was talking to, Celestial E-Mobility, which is making like this electric tractor, the first of its kind, and it is ready, and he has deployed it. He has got contract orders in hand. Many of the investors are like, oh, what happens if like Mahindra kind of takes over? They come into this space, and this guy is like, I just need like 0.5% market share, and I will be like $100 million company, right?
Oh,
So still there is that like lack of like trying to invest, being an investor, right? So I think the risk appetite is very low for many of the Indian investors. They just want to play more cautious and safe, and that is one more thing why the SpaceX and Teslas will continue to come out of US until you have investors who are ready to pump money and say, go do it. If it gone, it's okay.
true. So that's a very, very nice point which you have put across, both of you. I think one thing which is common towards people is that what I understand that I think all of us, all the people on the individual level, I think it's high time that people have to think about and do something on equipping themselves with the new knowledge and also make themselves fit with the new skills which are needed, whether it's operating a new computer or a machine or learning about some whatever new things are there. And there, I think I'm also tempted when I look at this topic many a time, even from a global perspective. And I think in our country, we also need to add positive attitude towards it. Because most of the time when we talk about skilling ourselves, we say, "यार ठीक है, देख लेंगे," it's like, हो जाएगा, which is not nice. I mean, if we do something, we have to do it in the best possible way. Even if it is a small thing which we do, if we have to make a 90-degree angle, it has to be really 90 degree. It should not be 89 degree. So that's what I'm tempted to say. I see actually a question also related to this part. Maybe Rama, I think the question is for you. It says, what's your opinion on startup, either in the products or services, who has started in this year or yet to start in manufacturing sector in this COVID situation? And how do you look at 2021?
Okay. In fact, good to see that quite some startups have put up their hands during this COVID time and have actually created hardware products. And one of them happens to be Blue Semiconductor, who is out of T-Hub. They have created a contactless thermal scanner which records temperature. Very, very high precision medical grade thing, rather than a manual like gun that somebody has to stand at the entrance everywhere. So these people have created this like automated things, hardware device. You deploy it once, it connects to your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and all, and then a host of beacons of such sensors can then collate a dashboard. So you can put it, if you have a large campus, it will kind of tell you migration of people with higher temperature, or if people going to cafeteria or toilets, what are the areas, track a person. So it can do a lot more smarter intelligent thing and create like next generation access. They're trying to integrate it with camera in terms of facial, so that the person can be identified and tagged, and the access will be allowed like your access card into the building. So temperature checks will become part and parcel of things. So they are in a good space. They are now also kind of being funded by MIT as well, the government department, and government of Telangana has also given a small order for all the government offices. So I see that now some of these things are becoming reality. Hardware itself is like has Anupam and Punit can tell, is like is difficult. I mean, it's not like software, right? Hardware is difficult. I mean, it starts from like, PCB soldering, putting the sensors, putting the plastic, the mold. And then I'm not even talking about like logistics, supply chain, like, shipping from factories, RMA, homologation, I can keep going on and on. It is so difficult to pull out, like, making a hardware product, deploying it, and ensuring it runs. So I think, but there are now startups who are doing it. There are ecosystem building around in terms of people who can help. And glad to see that some of them are taking off. So I think that's what I'm seeing here.
So you would say that you still see it as very positive. So if somebody wants to get into startup, even if it's a COVID situation, I think it's not really trying to think your ideas and put them in the
No, no,
back burner.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's time for action. I mean, what I understand from both of you that it's time for high-speed action. Actually, there's another question which has come from come on the screen here. Says new technology always takes time and it's not an overnight effect. So always new technology is required for economy to move ahead, and similarly, people slowly adopt. And when this slowly adopts, and from past 10 years, there has been a drastic change in technology. But question is, how will country like India, who have maximum percentage of people who are working for living, okay, that means really living at a low level, can adopt new technology unless it becomes very low cost. So what's your take there? I leave this to both of you. Anyone can answer this. Who would like to pick it up? Rama or Anupam? Anupam? Yeah.
Go ahead. Maybe I will talk later.
Yeah. Anupam?
Okay, okay. Rama, I'm going. So it's I think that's a very good question, and it is hinting towards the bottom of the pyramid segment that we have in our country. I would like to say that when the new technology comes, it is not about everybody buying that technology. Even before the technology, I mean, even somebody doesn't buy the technology, but because of the technology, the benefit he gets is really different. Say, for example, the cost of a material in a very remote village, if it goes down because the material is supplied by an autonomous truck, which goes from one place to another and supplies goods much cheaper, it is going to benefit him. And who knew about 10 years back, even the person in the bottom of the pyramid has a smartphone. But in India, we have seen all these changes. So if something is really beneficial and touches people, I don't think even bottom of the pyramid will be away from taking the benefit of that technology. At the same time, it appeals him and it is of real benefit. He will also adapt to the new technology.
I think very aptly put, Anupam. And I think that was the last question which we had here. So I would say that it was really very interesting and exciting to talk to both of you. Even though I met both of you for the first time over this video platform, but I think I'm really looking forward to catch up for a coffee again soon.
Absolutely.
The kind of points I think which we had towards the topic when we said sunshine industries, what does it mean? Very interesting way we discuss new areas which are opening up, high technology, and also how do we measure them, so to say, how do we classify and say that what does it mean, what kind of opportunities lie ahead. And we also, I think, were good to talk that it's not only about developed economies to look at. I think a country like India has immense potential where people have to really come forward, try their ideas. And I think we have to really learn, even if we are not trying out a new idea. But I think the critical part is we have to learn, and the pace of learning has to go up. And then it means a lot better for everybody who is living in the country, either as an investor or even as a potential employee. So very nice points which came up. Thank you so much. And I would like to end this discussion here by thanking both of you, Rama and Anupam, for investing your time. And it was a pleasure for me to talk to both of you and also to the people who are listening to us now. And I'm sure maybe Anand has a job later on to also ensure that maybe some way crisp messages are released into the larger audience so that more and more people can take benefit out of this content which has been generated.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Punit.
Thank you very much, Rama and Anupam. Pleasure. And have a great evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.